Hi there, everybody. This is Lee, and I'm giving an update on Dakota Access Pipeline, the Sioux Nation's efforts to defend sovereign territory and the environment and the lives of people in the surrounding area against poison and contamination, definitely corporate overreach, and then brutality by the criminal justice system of North Dakota. The actions have continued to be very egregious. Most insidious is the use of psychological warfare, gaslighting, and then outright lies against the Sioux Nation tribe. And people around the world have been kept up to date of the events that's been going on in North Dakota. And the fact that Sioux Nation did the right thing each time, that they actually used the court system, they used the legal system, they attended meetings, they signed documents, they communicated, they consulted, they did what they were supposed to do. They used the system. And then at every turn, the system is the one that disobeyed the rules. For instance, the government agencies that try to actually lie about Sioux Nation and claim that Sioux Nation was not participating or showing any interest in protecting their territory or communicating. And we knew from evidence provided by Sioux Nation that these government agencies are the ones who have been telling lies. The fact that Energy Transfer Partners hired security to use dogs, vicious dogs, to attack people who were engaged in civil disobedience, nonviolent protest, and there was no arrest of the aggressors. That there were even efforts to send in agitators to stir up trouble and to create a false media narrative of what was happening, and that this was thwarted by the tribe too. And so we see a lot of very sick behavior being inflicted on Sioux Nation in an effort to portray the media narrative as something that it wasn't, to create a false impression of Sioux Nation that was not true. And in fact, it reflected badly upon the criminal justice system, the elected officials of North Dakota, who were very derelict in their duties, and the government agencies who actually tried to outright lie against Sioux Nation had to be proven as liars. And then also the police forces that greatly overstepped their boundaries in how to engage nonviolent protesters in civil disobedience. The fact that the North Dakota State Legislature had bills being considered to authorize hit and runs on protesters, and that's not all, that there's still other kinds of bills being considered that are just an outrage, that it's like Death Race 2000 that they think they want to do out in North Dakota. And so Sioux Nation has been very brave and withstanding that vicious effort to destabilize the nation itself, to create a false narrative, and to brutalize the people. And then now we see that there's an effort to actually create more means by which to take control of sovereign Sioux territory for oil and gas development. That there's this effort to snatch their land and then hand it over to oil and gas interests for further exploitation. And so we know who are the heroes and we know who are the villains. Energy Transfer Partners and Dakota Access Pipeline have been trying very hard to portray themselves as the heroes of this story, and then alternatively as the victims of the story. And we know that they are neither, that they are actually the villains of the story. Their effort to control the media narrative has failed. Everyone knows who and what they are. And I want to direct people to go to TYT Politics to review the video archive of what's been happening at the Standing Rock location in North Dakota the efforts to protect that land and the water and the people downstream. And so I'll make that referral, but for now I'm going to focus on the effort to divest from the DAPL, the Dakota Access Pipeline. This is an article at Truthday. Seattle City Council Committee votes to divest from pro-DAPL Bank. This is dated February 1st. And so I'll post a link in the description if you can read through the full article. But basically, it's an effort spearheaded by Shama Sawant, the independent member of the Seattle City Council, who is a socialist alternative member of the City Council. She wrote Council Bill 118883 and proposed that the City of Seattle divest their holdings from Wells Fargo for various reasons. Their being the second largest sponsor of the Dakota Access Pipeline is only one. But then the fact that they also are sponsors of the private prison industry, that people just feel that they're sponsoring repression and terrorism, certainly slavery, with regard to the private prison industry, that they are sponsors of this wicked behavior against citizens of the United States. And so it stands to reason that people would not want to be associated with Wells Fargo for that reason. And so Shama Sawant proposed that bill. It went to the Finance Committee, and the committee voted to approve that effort to divest $3 billion from Wells Fargo. And so it's come out of the committee, and it has to go to the City Council for a full vote. Hopefully the vote will be to support the effort to divest $3 billion from the Dakota Access Pipeline sponsors Wells Fargo, and the private prison industry sponsors Wells Fargo. So I'll let people read through that. There's also more information about banks and the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. This is an article at Truthout, and just going through how the banks claim that they've been trying to speak with and negotiate with the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, and that this and that, and we're not sure whose side to believe in this. But I'll post a link to this article in the description for people to read through and review and see if whose side they believe in that regard. Let's see. There's also another article from Truthout. As Trump advances Dakota Access and Keystone XL, water protectors across the country double down. And it says across the country, but also in Canada. People have been very inspired by what happened at Standing Rock. That there have been so many arrests at Standing Rock. I think the number is nearing 700 now of people being arrested at the pipeline, in direct action at the pipeline. There's a lot of concern, but it lives on everywhere else. It lives on in the divestment movement. It lives on in the efforts at the other pipelines. Other groups are doubling down. This is like the Trans-Pecos pipeline that's running through Texas, planning to export frack gas down from Texas into Mexico across the Rio Grande River. And then there's the Diamond pipeline that's scheduled to or undergoing construction from Oklahoma, crossing bodies of water in Arkansas, including the Mississippi River, into Memphis, Tennessee. The Diamond Pipeline. There's also the Sabal Trail in Florida, the Bayou Bridge in Louisiana. Many pipelines that have seen an uptick in protest actions, civil disobedience, education, programming. So it lives on. And then, of course, the Keystone XL pipeline, that there's been a revival of protest, that although Barack Obama shut it down, that there's been a revival of interest in jumpstarting the Keystone XL pipeline due to Donald Trump's support of it. So, even though efforts by the fossil fuel industry have escalated, efforts to address this escalation by nonviolent civil disobedience protesters has also sprung up to answer that. Okay, and so the final article is about defunding the DAPL. Defund DAPL spreads across Indian country as the tribes divest. And this is an article from Counterpunch, that all across North America, certain tribes have also agreed to divest their holdings from the banks that sponsor the Dakota Access Pipeline. And so the pipeline is bleeding, hemorrhaging funds. The sponsoring banks are hemorrhaging. There's public outcry against the banks and then the pipeline company itself. And so the efforts are continuing, that despite the fact that there's been a lot of heartbreaking footage showing the targeting of certain leaders associated with the Dakota Access Water Protection, including Chase Iron Eyes, who was recently arrested. It moves on, it carries on, it's kind of spread out and decentralized. And that while a lot of focus was taken away from that effort due to the controversy over immigration and refugees and asylum seekers, that the effort has not stopped. It has continued. And that, for instance, with the Seattle City Council, that there are financial repercussions coming down the pipeline for Energy Transfer Partners, certainly Wells Fargo, and that other cities are considering this, taking the same step as Seattle. So it's continuing. It's hard to watch. It's very heartbreaking, but it's not over. Definitely, that even though there's been a lot of breaking of the law by Dakota Access Pipeline and Energy Transfer Partners, totally ignoring the order to stop constructing. They continue to constructing anyway. That they were to wait until the completion of the environmental assessment. They've ignored that as well. That they have hired on police or security forces or deputized people who have definitely violated many, many civil rights. That the effort has not stopped. It's ongoing. It's battles being lost, but definitely not the wars. That people are engaged and still willing to stand up either where they are or in North Dakota, making their phone calls, divesting, moving their money from fossil fuels into new energy industries, being the change that they wish to see. Every bit helps, and so definitely stay in it, stay frosty, and stay focused. It's definitely not over. We all have a part to play, and there's many things that still remain to be done. I do hope that if veterans are able to return to location, that they do. And then also that there are many people in need of legal assistance in Standing Rock, that there are people who are hurting, who have been, physically assaulted, and then certainly psychologically attacked by the criminal justice system at North Dakota. That there hopefully is a refocus on the events that are occurring there. That if anyone's in the vicinity and can offer their professional and skill, professional expertise and their skills, that it is possible to do that. I'll post some more links in the description for people to follow up. Good luck.